Welcome to Dave's Take. Today we are talking about Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, a prequel to one of the greatest action movies ever made. So Furiosa is about Furiosa. It's her origin story and the events leading up to Mad Max Fury Road. And I rewatched Mad Max Fury Road last night and it holds up. It is still perfect. It is still one of the best action movies ever made. I think it might be my favorite action movie of all time. The film is absolutely flawless with some of the best action I've ever seen, with a really great story with some really great characters. And when they announced they're making Furiosa, I wasn't really worried because I trust George Miller, because God bless him, he's like 80 years old and he's just in a different class when it comes to action filmmaking. But I did manage my expectations a little bit because I knew that this wasn't going to beat Fury Road. I mean, if it did, that would be such an accomplishment because like I said before, it's probably my favorite action movie ever made and it's just one of the best movies ever made. It's just so fucking fantastic. And yes, Furiosa is not as good as Fury Road, but like I said, it never was going to be, but it's still an epic, demented, fucked up, chaotic journey into this beautiful world of chaos and insanity that George Miller has created. But I really do feel like this is a perfect companion piece to Fury Road. All these big franchises now always have films be part 1 and part 2. Fury Road feels like part 2, and Furiosa feels like part 1. Furiosa absolutely stands on its own. It could be its own film. It has a beginning, middle, and end, and a conclusion. Yes. But as companion pieces, this does feel like part 1, and then Fury Road is just the epic finale to Furiosa's story. And not only that, this film really expands the world of the wasteland and things that we've already seen in Fury Road, and I think that was the biggest surprise for me. Because I thought this film was really going to be centered and focused on Furiosa, and it definitely is a lot about her. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I was surprised by how much they expanded the lore in just this world of the wasteland. You really see how these different locations work together, specifically with the Citadel, and expand some of the things that we saw in Fury Road, specifically with the characters, but like I said, the whole entire world. And it just feels so organic. It feels like there's someone that has this clear vision for this world and really thought about everything. Like the tiniest little details, the ways of life, the weapons, it's all so thought out, and that's why we love these movies. Those parts of the film are some of my favorite, but one of my favorite parts about this film that kind of surprised me but not really was Chris Hemsworth. He is fucking great here. He plays a villain here and he honestly steals the show. Like the first 45 minutes of the film, Anya Taylor-Joy is not in it. It's a younger version of Furiosa and that actress does a great job, but a lot of it is focused around Chris Hemsworth and his story and what this villain is trying to do, and it's great. He's very funny, but he's also very fucked up. You get his motivations and you understand how his kingdom operates. And what I loved about this villain is it feels very different from Immortan Joe or any of the other villains in Fury Road. He really stands out. And like I said, he is one of the best parts about this film. And now let's get to Furiosa, Anya Taylor-Joy. She is magnificent here. She's the perfect younger version of Furiosa. She does a great job. And when it's focused on her, it's a very fascinating origin story. And all that's done really well. But what I've realized with these George Miller Mad Max films is that the main character, I feel like, gets like no lines of dialogue and it's almost centered on someone else in the film. Furiosa is definitely mostly about Furiosa. I'm not trying to say that, but I will say a lot of the film is focused around Chris Hemsworth, which is great. He has most of the dialogue in this film, but I'm just saying it's kind of funny when you think about those two films. But what really surprised me and probably surprised me most about the film is that this doesn't feel like a complete remake of Fury Road. It doesn't feel like Fury Road 2 or just like a reboot with a younger Furiosa. This film really takes its time to focus on these characters and expanding this world, so there is a lot of downtime. For me, someone who really loves this world, the wasteland, and just the look of it, it never bored me, but I definitely noticed that the pacing in this film is completely different from Fury Road. Like Fury Road is just one long chase. It's non-stop. It's fucking awesome. It's perfect. Furiosa takes place over 15 years, so there's a lot of things they have to cover. So there is a lot of downtime. And yes, don't get me wrong, this film is filled with action. And when the action goes down, it's fucking awesome. It reminds you of why you love George Miller. It's those crazy action sequences with some creative vehicle designs and just things that you wouldn't think of, and it's fucking exciting. But I will say, even with the longer runtime, there's probably less action in here than Fury Road, and I don't think there's any action scene in here that tops Fury Road. Like, I think every single action scene in Fury Road is superior to all the action scenes in Furiosa. And that is not a knock at all, because almost all the action scenes in Furiosa are far superior than most of the action scenes we see today in any other films. What I'm trying to say here is the action in Furiosa is great. It's fantastic. It's extremely well done. But I don't think it's anything groundbreaking like we saw in Fury Road. And I think the main reason why is that there's CGI in this film, and I know there's CGI in Fury Road, but in Fury Road, it was used so perfectly you barely noticed it. And when you did notice it, it was kind of on purpose. Here, there are parts in this film where the CGI is very noticeable, and it's not really in that way where George Miller is trying to make something look really weird. Like, there are parts when you can notice it and it kind of sticks out because it just doesn't really look that good. Which is a bummer, because so many people online when the first trailer dropped were like, this movie's gonna fucking suck, the CGI looks terrible. I was like, fuck you guys. You don't know what you're talking about. Go outside or something. You're just being haters. And I was watching the movie tonight, I was sitting in the theater like, they may have a point. Just slightly. I think they're still wrong because the action here still looks incredible, but I was a little disappointed by some of the CGI in here. I just wasn't expecting that. And another issue I have is something I mentioned earlier, how they cover 15 years of story in this film. It definitely feels like there are certain things that were just sort of glossed over. Like, this movie's 2.5 hours long, so I honestly don't know what you cut out to add some of those things. Maybe you just have to make the movie longer, but there are definitely parts where I was like, I want to see more of that. I want to learn more about that. But it did lead to a great ending scene that I loved, with Furiosa really tying her character together, and then leads into Fury Road just beautifully. Like I said before, this is a perfect companion piece to Fury Road. This really feels like part 1 and part 2. You can watch these two movies back to back and just have this giant epic story about insanity and chaos. I really loved how this film surprised me with its pacing. It's paced really well, but in a way I wasn't expecting for a Mad Max movie. It takes its time to really expand the story with its characters, the world elements, the details, and it's really well done. It feels completely different from Fury Road, but at the same time, it feels like it fits perfectly with Fury Road, like a puzzle piece. If you didn't like Fury Road, this isn't going to win you over. I actually think you're probably not going to like it at all. If you're a big fan of Fury Road like me, I think you're absolutely going to have a good time. I think you'll really like it. It's not a perfect film, but it didn't need to be. It just needed to be a well-made prequel, and that's what it is. I'm going to give Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, 8.5 Davey Daves. It'll be interesting to see over the years the rewatch value for this film, because Fury Road you can pop on any day and just watch it. I watch it like 3 times a year. This is definitely a little bit slower. Like, anytime I rewatch this, I feel like I'm going to pop in Fury Road right afterwards. I wonder how many times I'll rewatch Furiosa just alone. So, Furiosa, let me know what you guys thought of it once you've seen it. I'm curious to hear. And thank you so much for watching. Click here to see more of Dave's Takes.